Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today you're joining me in what I think is quite possibly one of the coolest older cars that you can get, and it is considered old these days. You're joining me in a 2006 Bentley Continental Flying Spur. Within this era they were still called the Continental, and then the Flying Spur came after that. In recent Bentleys they're slightly different in the way that they word things. It's just the Bentley Flying Spur. But this one here is the 6-litre W12 engine, one of which has been in manufacturing for quite some time within the Bentley range. In fact, they still use a 6-litre W12, although it's coming to an end. It produces 552 brake horsepower, and on an 18-year-old near 3-ton car, it still shifts. It's really quite impressive. But my question is whether this Bentley has a place within the modern world of cars. In terms of the build quality, I still think it is sublime. You wouldn't think that this car was 18 years old. It has only done 61,000 miles. There are quite a few Bentleys out there that have got more mileage, but also several that have less, just because of the style of car that it is. I've also had the 2-door GT on my channel, which you may have seen that video previously, and I ran that car myself for a little bit and I absolutely adored it. I thought it was fantastic. But I've almost come to the realization that maybe it's almost like I've matured to think that the Flying Spur might actually be the better Bentley. I don't know why, because from the front end it looks exactly the same. It's only when you get the side profile and the rear that they actually start to look different. And of course it is a longer car in general. It's a bigger car and certainly a heavier car, given the fact that it has 2 extra doors on it. And but it does also mean that when you take a rear passenger, they actually have room within the back of the car. The GT is more of a 2-seater sports car with the capability to have luggage on the rear seats. I don't think I'd be cruel enough to shove anyone into the back of it, but this one I'd have no worries at all putting people in the back. It's almost made more for the passengers, especially in this particular example with the rear entertainment screens and DVD players, and it works in quite old technology but still relevant to today, providing you have a DVD that you'd want to watch. So yeah, you can load it in, and I'll obviously load up the rear screens to have it. The way that it does its audio, I imagine at the time was very clever, because all it is it's emitting a transmission for FM. So you just tune your FM radio to the same transmission as what's on the rear screens, and it'll come through the speakers, or of course you can just plug in some headphones. So the tech is quite old school but still perfectly usable for today's standards, and that kind of goes with the rest of the car as well. The satellite navigation within the media screen is rubbish. I wouldn't really trust it. But with smartphones being as smart as they are these days, you get yourself a decent phone man over here somewhere, put your phone on, and you got all your maps and everything as you would ordinarily expect. This particular one does actually have Bluetooth, and it was a rather expensive option from the word go. So I've got a little bit within my armrest here, a little LCD screen, and I've even got the original Bentley handset, which is a very pretty looking thing. So if you wanted to take the phone call privately as a passenger, you certainly could, rather than having it come through the speakers of the car. So that's a really cool thing to have. As I say, the build quality is fantastic. There is so much leather in this car. I don't think you get away with it these days. You know, there's leather door cards, leather pillars, leather headlining, but it's proper thick leather, which is why it stood the test of time of 18 years. Because as I say, you wouldn't necessarily think that this had done its time or its mileage. And I love the 2-tone contrast in this particular one. It's a magnolia first base, as they call it, and then it's just black on the second, but you've got like the 2-tone steering wheel here. The seats are in magnolia. It's my personal favorite color combination, and I know that that's all subjective to different people's opinions, but I quite like to have a dark exterior with a light interior, but dark carpets and dark door cards and everything like that. The wood obviously boasts an enormous amount of elegance throughout. When you start to dive into a few of the menus and bits, you can certainly see its age of the car, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it drives stunning. It's a real joyous place to be, and that 6-litre W12 I think is better than most engines that are in manufacturing now. As I say, given that it's 18 years old, if I put my foot down, It sounds tremendous and picks up fantastically well. It's a huge lump under the bonnet. I'll show you a clip of it now. It's a massive lump under the bonnet. It's a thing of engineering and it's a thing of beauty. It's something that you can stand and look at and talk to about people if you're sad and a nerd like me. But it is a phenomenal bit of engineering, and it's a twin turbo, and it just, the way it spools up, the way it gets you going in a straight line is fantastic. I've already mentioned though that it is near 3 ton. So its get up and go speed in a straight line is great, but it is very heavy within the corner. You can definitely feel the weight of the car in how you drive it. But my question is with a car like this, are you buying it for that purpose? Do you want it to be that you've just got this ginormous luxury cruiser that just takes you through the roads, or do you want it to be a bit more sporty? The GT did feel that it had more of a capability throughout the corners, but the honest truth is these days in the roads and how busy they are, especially where I am down in Devon throughout the holiday makers season, you'll never have the opportunity to really put the GT through its paces. So you're more than likely just going to be cruising along anyway. And at least in this one, because it is a slightly longer wheelbase and a slightly bigger car, the ride does feel that bit softer as well. It's incredibly quiet within the cabin. As I say, it's really well insulated with all the leather and everything. You can hear the 6 litre when you put your foot down, but if you don't, you're just cruising along. It's perfectly quiet, and it's a beautiful place for the driver, but also the passengers as well. As I say, the trim doesn't stop throughout the entire car. So within the rear, you've got an enormous amount of leg room. All 4 seats, they are heated and ventilated. So I've got my little ventilated dial down here, which obviously heats it as well. I've got a button down here which I can give myself a massage on the seat. And the rear seats have also got those same functionalities. They've got its own rear climate control as well as a dual climate control up here as well. So it's a 4-zone climate control. So a lot of those are obviously still used within luxury vehicles of today. It's just the tech of the screens and bits that really makes you feel that it isn't as new as what they can be. The question of whether it's got a place within the modern world, it's a difficult one to answer, because we're now talking tremendous value. I don't think they'll go much lower than what they are, purely because it's still a Bentley. It's still a very luxury mark to have on your bonnet, and to hold the key of a Bentley and everything. That is lovely. And it's, you know, when new, I was talking to the Bentley customer services, which are incredibly helpful if you ever need to ring through to them. I've done it on each Bentley that I've had within my stock range. I always give them a call, and they're always able to send me through the entire stock list, the entire spec list rather, of the vehicle, what was selected when it was new. And it also gives me any of the Bentley online service histories, providing it's been done with one of their main dealerships. This one had an enormous amount of Bentley service history, which is great. But this one, when new, I was talking to the service advisor chap, he reckoned it would have been about £125,000 back in 2006. That's 18 years ago as I speak now, which is an enormous amount of time within the car world, because of course technology has come on drastically since. This one I now have on my forecourt for $17,995, so it's like 15% of its original value, but still feels like you're in a luxurious bit of engineering that was once £125,000. The only thing that kind of lets it down as well, of course, is the running cost. That 6 litre W12, as tremendous as it is, very thirsty on fuel. So when we're going through the drive that I'm doing today, I am getting 14 miles to the gallon. That's 14 miles to the gallon, and I'm not exactly caning that anywhere. I've driven a few of these long distance, and the long distance MPG, you'll get about 18, 20 if you're really trying to feather it through. So yeah, the running costs certainly aren't great. You'll get to know where your local fuel stations are, that's for sure. And the other side of it that lets it down, and they're really trying to push these type of cars off the road, any era of around the bigger engine stuff, anything from 2006 up to about 2009, a big 6 litre W12, 5 litre V8, whatever it might be, all falls within that higher tax bracket, unfortunately, which has recently been put up to £735 a year for UK road tax. That's quite a lot, isn't it, in comparison to what is out there for very similar performance and certainly a better MPG and more tech and everything like that. but there is something nostalgic about this car. It is very, very cool. You just have to be wary that you're going to be spending a bit of money on it just to keep it on the road. Servicing wise, very much the same. If you was to take it to a Bentley or an independent Bentley specialist, I did it with this one. There was a local specialist to me, had the full service and all went through, but it was about £1,080, I think it was, to have this one serviced, which is again a lot. You know, their labour rate was something like £180 an hour plus the VAT, so that works out that it's £3 a minute that they'll spend servicing your car. But the hopes is, of course, that when you get it back, you won't have any continuous issues going forward. There are also some pretty big bills in for repair works that it's previously had. So, for example, timing chains, they're not massively common, but if it needs to be done, I had another Bentley which had the timing chains done. That bill come to about £2,400 or so to have the timing chains and tensioners done. They're also prone to having the oxygen sensors go on the exhaust, and I think at the specialist again that was about £820 per sensor, so 1,600 quid for the two sensors to be done. Fortunately, they were done before it come into the ownership of me, of which then it's something that the next potential customer hopefully doesn't have to worry about because it's already been sorted. So, albeit obviously, as I say, about 15% of its original retail market value, it's still an expensive thing to keep on the road. You have to almost judge it that you're buying a £125,000 car with the servicing cost of a £125,000 car. So the question is the people that have the money to kind of keep these things on the road, are they more inclined to go for a newer model which are going to have similar kind of running cost on the road? You know, because it's not everyone that can have these type of cars within their garage as their everyday car, which, to be fair, a lot of them are kind of, you know, second cars, Sunday cars, whatever it might be, someone's pride and joy, and I can definitely see why you'd have one because they are still tremendous. So the tech does let it down, but the actual drive itself is truly astounding, and I'll be really sad when these cars are no longer viable. I think they are still viable for a few. There will be some people that will just enjoy having this beautiful car for not an enormous purchase price, albeit they'll have to have the upkeep of a luxury car. You'll still be able to enjoy it. You'll still take it for those drives and think, yeah, this is a phenomenal bit of engineering, and I am ever so comfortable getting a massage within my ventilated seat. And you know, with the radio side of things, if you can get over that, if you don't need the latest of satellite navigation or, you know, even Apple CarPlay, I'm sure someone's done some trickery to put Apple CarPlay into a Bentley of this age. But if you're not fussed about that, it's still a gorgeous place to be. It's a tremendous drive. The trim is lovely. It certainly wears ever so well. And if you were one of these type of people to put a personal plate onto a car to hide its age, it does it ever so well. It still looks like a luxury modern car. When I've driven these Flying Spurs, it's still a head turner. People still look at you, you know, people take note when you go by. You know, some people might be thinking, what on earth is he doing in that old barge of a Bentley, which is getting a terrible MPG? But there will be some people out there that really do appreciate what this car is. So yeah, I still think it personally has a place within the world, but I don't think it will be for much longer as these cars do get older and older, and you know, newer models of things become into the bracket of this kind of value. Will it lose its place? Potentially so, but as it stands at the minute, I think you get a tremendous amount of Bentley for a reasonable price tag. It's definitely not cheap. No one says it's cheap. And the running cost, as I say, kind of don't reflect the price that you paid for it. But for a couple of years of being able to drive one of these beautiful cars, I would certainly say that it was worth it. And they're tremendous fun. It's a four-wheel drive system. It's an enormous amount of power. As I say, it's get up and go. The straight line speed is absolutely tremendous. A little heavier in the corners, but if you can live with that, and as I say, when do you realistically be able to kind of pin it where you want it to? today's a classic example. I'm within the beautiful country lanes, and I'm just in an enormous line of traffic because there's someone at the front who isn't used to driving these lanes doing 35 miles an hour on a national speed limit road. But you know, that's a rant for another time. But yeah, it is truly stunning as a place to be, and I really do enjoy driving them. But the trick is to get in the back of one of these. So even in the back of this 18-year-old Bentley Continental Flying Spur, it's a really special place to be. The quality of the interior is fantastic. The seats are really wide and comfortable. I've got an armrest should I want it. The leather in the headlining is absolutely lovely. The quality of the switches and the controls back here really does stand the test of time. It's the double glazed windows as well. These have got privacy glass on it, so it's a really soft and quiet ride. I've got heater vents everywhere, one for the window here, one for myself, and then obviously the next passenger's got their own. My own climate controls down here. I've got a dial on here for my heated and ventilated seats and a button down on the base to turn on the massage function. This particular one has got the rear entertainment, so I'm currently watching whichever DVD is in the system at the moment. Couldn't tell you what film this is, but it looks like quite a gangster film, which is appropriate for the type of car that it is, I suppose. But I could happily spend the day travelling in the back of this. I've not moved this seat from my driving position, and I know that I'm not the tallest of people, but I've got a ginormous amount of room in the back of this car. So yeah, well impressed, and I really do think it stood the test of time. So yeah, very happy to be chauffeured around in one of these. So yes, as you can see, being in the back of the car is kind of the place to be. But just to finish off the video, continuing on our drive, I've actually got a bit of clear road ahead of me, so we'll kind of see how it performs. But as I say, that acceleration's fantastic. It's great. When you come to braking and you come to steering, it feels very much like it's in control because you've got the four wheels, the four-wheel drive. But you can definitely feel its weight. It's quite nose heavy in this particular instance. I've already caught up with some traffic. That's how typical it is. It's a tractor with some silage in the back of it. So you're never really going to get the full opportunity to enjoy these cars on these roads these days. But there might be the odd time where we're very lucky. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really does mean a lot. The numbers are growing. I really do appreciate you all watching. And yeah, I hope to see you for the next one. Thank you.